Last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape.
Ah, yes, two parties, two standards. Were it not for double standards, as the world knows, liberals would have no standards at all. President Trump yesterday on camera once again sharing his thoughts, answering questions from all comers, so to speak. An extraordinary time to be paying attention in the United States of America. Now, if you're in Chicago, Illinois, it's another ball of wax altogether, isn't it? What with the homicides and the crime, and President Trump offering to help with the crime. It's not a crisis. See, the Democrats are perfectly comfortable with 573 murders in their city in 1 year, 2024. That's not a problem for the Democrats. They applaud that. Hey, come on, you think that's bad? You should have seen us in 2014. We were really bad then. That's how the Democrats rationalize things. That ain't bad. We've had much worse years than that. Come on, we've only got 27 homicides per 100,000 people. Is that going to be a problem? New York City has 4.6 homicides per 100,000. But never mind that. The Democrats, they like homicide. They're the pro-murder party. It's the problem is not our guns, it's their sons. Everybody knows that. So we've got that. I want to catch up on all the stupidity of Governor J.B. Pritzker, the inherited billionaire, circumference, as he's known to the Knights of the Round Table. And he is just out of his mind. He also comes into play on today's mailbag questions for today. And I think we botched mailbag last week, didn't we? We botched the mailbag last week. This morning I blamed Michael Piercy completely for all of that. I said it's all his fault and not my fault at all. I was half kidding. I was maybe 33% kidding. I was mostly kidding. Okay, not mostly. There we have. But we have the mailbag today, and I have mailbag questions right in front of me right now from your beloved listeners out there in America land. The Democrats, on the other hand, they're not living out there in America land, and they're not happy. They're not happy about anything. The only thing that makes them happy is being unhappy. That's what they love most. The unhappiness that they revel in, they relish so much, and they create it for themselves. But we've got big stuff going on in addition to Democrats shooting people across the country. And keep in mind, it's almost all Democrats that are shooting people in big cities and the crimes. And it's not a lot of Republicans. That'd be a trial that would be live on CNN every day for months on end if they found a Republican that had shot somebody in Washington or New York. Or so. Remember the Daniel Penny? He was a Marine, and he stopped a crazy person on a subway train, and unfortunately, the man died because he's a psychopath and he's fighting and all that stuff. But he became the center of attention for the national news media all over the place because they thought, well, he was a Marine. He might be a Republican. And this poor, innocent, mentally ill psychopath terrorizing women and threatening to murder them on a subway train. He's the sad story, the victim of the story, because Democrats, they're on the side of the murderer and the crazy mentally ill people at all times. They certainly are. And in Washington, D.C., it's getting harder and harder to find a severely mentally ill psychopath wandering the streets, screaming at people and threatening people while not wearing a shirt, and he can't even explain his own tattoos. You know, we still have some of those. I saw one the other day on Connecticut Avenue, but that's not important now. Let's get back to the big news of the day. There are all kinds of big things going on. The president took military action against a go-fast boat, a speedboat loaded with drugs coming out of Venezuela, apparently being operated by the gang Tren de Aragua, who the Democrats love. The Democrats love Tren de Aragua. It's one of their favorite Latin American gangs. Who are their other favorite gangs from Latin America, Michael? They love MS-13, and so does MS-13 DNC. They've got their own network now on the cable, and it's kind of a lot of fun they're having over there. They have Joyless Reed and They got a lot of mentally ill people over there, too. Some of them should be homeless, but instead they have multi-million-dollar jobs because NBC News loves propaganda more than they love just about anything. Pretty extraordinary stuff. So we've got that. But President Trump, U.S. military in the southern Caribbean, the Gulf of America, and an airstrike on a go-fast boat loaded up with drugs and 11, not 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 11 smugglers, traffickers, drug traffickers. And the Democrats are like, what? We only had 80,000 drug overdoses, fatal drug overdoses last year. That's down from more than 100,000 drug overdoses. And they love that. They say, like Baltimore, come on, we're only going to have like 900 murders in Baltimore this year. Last year we had 1,100, so progress is being made. Those are not the actual numbers out of Baltimore, but they might as well be because the Democrats, they applaud. Oh, look how few murders we're having. Isn't this great? Just wonderful. But the action that the president took, United States Navy ships in the South Caribbean, the Gulf of America, close to the coast of South America, and Venezuela, where Nicolas Maduro, the communist socialist, he looks kind of like Saddam Hussein. He could play Saddam Hussein in the movie about Saddam Hussein. And he's been declared a drug trafficker by the United States government, the administration of Donald Trump. And he talked about them smuggling drugs and how he wasn't going to put up with that anymore. And now the U.S. military down there collecting intelligence and watching the go-fast boats go from here to there, loaded with drugs and with gang members. And yesterday they blowed one up. They blowed it up real good. Boom, they said. Boom, shakalaka-laka. And that got blown up. And they released the video, too. And that's a way of sending a message, you see. It's like that these 11 guys sleep with the fishes, right? It's a little Luca Brasi thing. And it's pretty serious stuff. It's very Tom Clancy. And the president had the U.S. Navy blow up this go-fast boat, drug smuggling boat, in the Gulf of America, the South Caribbean. And now they're all dead because they got blown up. And I'm thinking that today, when they load up the go-fast boat with lots of drugs to be smuggled to the next place, the lily pad coming to the United States of America, that it's not going to be a popular job today. Today it's going to be, well, you guys see that video? Because they have the internet down there, thanks to the patriarchy and America. And so they watched this video, and they said, I'm not getting on that boat. Look what happened to yesterday's boat. So smuggling drugs out of Venezuela, where billions of dollars of drugs have originated, and they're smuggled out of Venezuela, and the Chinese communists help, and they bring the drugs to the United States, and then thousands and thousands of Americans are killed in fatal drug overdoses because all these drugs are smuggled in the country. And the Democrats say, what? We like drugs. We like death. We're the party of death. We love death more than you love life, as the Democrat Party mantra goes. They might be sued by Al-Qaeda for stealing their mantra, but then again, maybe not. And so the president, this is a big deal, kind of big deal. I think this is going to make drug smuggling across the waters there unpopular for a while. This is going to be, there are going to be openings, job availabilities. Hey, we got 11 openings over here in the Go Fast Boat Department of smuggling drugs to the United States. And that's going to be, I think I'm going to get a job at the 7-Eleven or the Siete Ocho or whatever it is. Because I don't know 11 in Spanish, so I can't do that. But that's big stuff going on, and I want to talk about that because the left now, they find themselves in the position of having to defend Tren de Aragua smuggling drugs into the United States of America with go-fast boats. And now the Democrats, they're pro-murder, they're pro-MS-13, they're pro-open borders, they're pro-radical Islamic terrorist group with Hamas, and they're anti-Israel. And now they're pro-drug smuggling operation like, Tony Montana, in Scarface. He talked about, hey, this is no cakewalk anymore. They got the AWACS up there and all this stuff, and it's no cakewalk. Tony Montana, and now it's back. We're fighting drugs and the drug traffickers, and 11 guys Apparently, they counted them. They did the head count on the boat before they blew it up, and they're dead now. 11 guys dead. They're casualties of a war on drugs. And I got to say, we're apparently down from more than 100,000 fatal drug overdoses a couple of years ago to just over 80,000 fatal drug overdoses last year in the United States, which is more than we lost in the Vietnam War between 1959 and 1975. And that's in 1 year in the United States from fatal drug overdoses. China helped, and you got the Nicolas Maduros, and he's a cartel leader in effect. And you know who the wealthiest person in Venezuela is? The wealthiest person in Venezuela? It's the daughter of now former late President Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was the communist socialist president of Venezuela for a number of years. His daughter is worth billions of dollars, billions, I tell you, and she is the wealthiest person in Venezuela because it's, if not shockingly, at least an appallingly corrupt country, and they love gangs and smuggling drugs to the United States so that Americans will die in fatal drug overdoses. And the Democrats, they're good with that. They're just fine with that. They want to get a vacation home in Venezuela. They're not on our side. Venezuelan drug trafficking. They take in 2023 the numbers that the federal government has the best, most current numbers for. And actually, the numbers that the U.S. government is using comes out of the Venezuelan government. Transparencia Venezuela is the eventual source. $8.2 billion in total profits for the drug cartels in Venezuela alone. $8.2 billion. Now, where are all these drugs going? They're going to Colombia? No, they have their own drugs there. They have cocaine and all that good stuff. But these drugs are all coming to the United States. $8.2 billion. That .2 is $200 million. $8.2 billion in total profits for the drug cartels there. They'd get about 50 million, 50.5 million in marijuana profits, 8.18 billion in cocaine profits. So most of it is cocaine, and these are the numbers out of the government in Venezuela. The reality is that fentanyl and other lethal drugs coming out of there as well. It's a route that is used by the smugglers, the traffickers, and the Democrat Party. They're fine with all this. They're on the side of crime in Chicago. They want more of it. They don't want to fight crime. Crime in Washington, D.C., they'd like to see more crime in Washington, D.C. More drugs coming into the United States, more fatal drug overdoses, and, the Democrat Party. In the meantime, what do we have, like 54 shot in Chicago over the weekend and 8 killed. That's not a thing. Just great. And crime is up in Chicago. Felony theft is up. Motor vehicle theft is up. Misdemeanor theft is up. Burglary is up. Crime is up in Chicago because Democrats, they love Democrats because they're criminals. And so we have that. And then CNN, this story made me laugh out loud when I found it last night. Trump canceling elections, ? This is, and we played the audio. Did we have Gavin Newsom talked about this, right? The governor of California, the failed state of California. Trump canceling elections, ? Democrats increasingly sound alarm bells. They're increasingly fictionalizing and imagining their delusional conspiracy theories. And again, they're projecting their own sensibilities onto everyone else. But this is pretty funny. They got pretty funny. They got a guy named Aaron Blake. He used to be at the Washington Post. Now he's at CNN. Trump canceling elections? He's just parroting what Gavin Newsom made up in his latest delusion. They're mentally ill. That I think every elected Democrat needs to have a mental exam of some kind. But we've got the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, for you, and the mayor of Chicago, Illinois. Let's go, Brandon Johnson. He's a former educator, Isn't that great? And also, what is this reverse migration thing that is happening in the United States. We have more illegal aliens fleeing the country than we have coming into the country. I think it'd be fair to say that's the opposite of what Joe Biden and the Democrats created. Yes, sir. Mayor Muriel Bowser in Washington, D.C. seems to be coming to her senses a little bit. We'll see how long that lasts. Boy, this drug smuggler thing out of Venezuela, that's a big one. The House of Representatives, the Senate back in session in Washington, and Burkina Faso in the news again. I love Burkina Faso.
We still got to take that to Florida, man. Do you know what that's like these days? That's no duck walk anymore. Let me tell you.
I had a great many fun and occasionally not so fun news stories to share with you today. Courtesy of the Democrat Party overwhelmingly, and Mailbag Day as well. Let us go now to the telephones and talk to the nice American people. Let's go to Jeff calling from Milton, Delaware. Jeffrey, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, good morning to you. Thanks for letting me lead off. So I was listening intently to the show yesterday, as I mostly always do, and you had a soundbite of Joe Scarborough rattling on about something incoherently and just out of mind and body and state. And then after that, you very astutely made the comment that he should remove his head from his backside. Well, I got to tell you, man, it seems like guys like he and Pritzker and Let's Go Brandon Johnson up there, I think they like the view from up there, man. That's the only way I can explain it. They are unhinged, just pretty much just gone off the rails.
Yep, the Democrat Party has lost its collective mind, and they're on the wrong side of everything. And the thing about it, Jeff, is that they're loud and angry and belligerent and hostile about being pro-crime and anti-police and anti-ICE and pro-illegal alien. And now President Trump putting the zap on a go-fast boat loaded with drugs coming out of Venezuela being operated by Tren de Aragua, according to the U.S. government. And they blew it up yesterday. And now the Democrats, Jeff, get a chance to come out in favor of Tren de Aragua smuggling lethal drugs into the United States. And that's what they're doing. Sure enough, this morning, they're already all over, how dare Trump stop drug traffickers? This is war. And I tend to think, Jeff, they're talking about this is war by them against us, by the Democrats, not the Venezuelans. They're not on the side of anything good. Well, yeehaw! I have a story to share with you. Not just the story out of Burkina Faso, which I like very much. Burkina Faso banned homosexuality. Prison sentences and fines associated because they're Burkina Faso. Where is it that Mamdani, the incoming mayor of New York, he's Uganda. He's Uganda, not Burkina Faso. But this is great stuff. I want to get to blowing up the Venezuelan go-fast boat and killing 11 Tren de Aragua members, the Trump administration, United States military blowing them up. That's gonna tap the brakes on the drug trafficking out of Venezuela and doubtless beyond Venezuela as well. I'll get to that in a minute, but I do want to share with you this noteworthy story out of Burkina Faso, which is a country in Africa. And if you know me, then you know that my favorite world capital is in Burkina Faso. What's my favorite world capital? Burkina Faso? It's Ouagadougou. Ouagadougou is my favorite world capital. And that's the capital of Burkina Faso in Africa, a treasured country, and everyone in the world loves Burkina Faso. And we all love the capital of Ouagadougou. Ouagadougou is lovely and wonderful. Just kidding. Don't ever go there. The headline today is Burkina Faso bans homosexuality with prison terms and fines for offenders. Hey, wait a minute, you'd be thrown in a prison? Is it an all-men's prison? Because, that's kind of a weird punishment if the crime is, So Burkina Faso's parliament has passed a new law banning homosexuality. And ABC News has the fake story, but really it's a real story. But the Associated Press wrote the story for them, so ABC didn't have to do any typing on their own. But it's a remarkable story for a number of reasons. The dateline is Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, and they write, Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso AP, Burkina Faso's parliament has passed a law banning homosexuality with offenders facing 2 to 5 years in prison. Again, kind of an odd punishment but there you have it. The state broadcaster reported late Monday. The amended family code was approved by the parliament on Monday in a unanimous vote. God, can you imagine having that kind of unity here in Washington on Capitol Hill? A unanimous vote for anything. Ice cream for everyone. You wouldn't get a unanimous vote. Unanimous vote in Burkina Faso, in Ouagadougou, that puts the code into effect more than a year after it was approved by the military government of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Ibrahim Traoré, it's his military government. He's in charge in Burkina Faso now. Burkina Faso, listen to this, joins the list of more than half of Africa's 54 countries that have laws banning homosexuality, with the penalties ranging from, listen now, several years in prison to the death penalty. The death penalty, that's pretty strict stuff, isn't it? And more than half the countries in Africa have banned homosexuality. Now, where does Mamdani stand on all of this with his residence and his separate family residence in Uganda? I'm not sure. We're going to have to put that question to him. But isn't that amazing? So penalties ranging in more than half the countries in Africa, 54 countries in Africa, and more than half the countries have laws banning homosexuality. So that would be, a bunch of countries, 27 countries, somewhere in that neighborhood, 28. The laws, though criticized abroad, enjoy popularity in the countries where the locals and officials have criticized homosexuality as behavior, listen, imported from abroad and not a sexual orientation. They've imported it from abroad. Remember Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who was Michael Piercy's favorite president of Iran. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, he, what would we call him? Bam Bam, what was his name? Stinky. He was Stinky, that's right, because he's famously odoriferous, famously smelly. He doesn't like bathing, he doesn't like soap, and he was famously stinky. I guess he probably still is. But Mahmoud Ahmadinejad famously said that in Iran, they didn't have such problems.
In Iran, we don't have homosexuals like in your country. We don't have that in our country. In Iran, we do not have this phenomenon. I don't know who's told you that we have it.
That was at Columbia University in New York City, and the audience, all cross-dressing, transgender Democrats. Columbia University, Barack Obama went to school there. I don't think he knew Larry Sinclair when he was at Columbia University. But they warmly invited and warmly received Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. And you may recall that they would take people accused of being gay and throw them off of rooftops of tall buildings to kill them with their hands tied behind their back, or they would hang them from construction cranes in town squares while the crowd cheered Allahu Akbar, because they enjoyed hanging and killing people that they accused of being gay in Iran. They're not a very liberal country, but the Democrats are more on their side than they are on our side. Isn't that great? So back to Burkina Faso for a minute. So the new law goes into effect immediately with individuals in same-sex relationships risking prison sentences as well as fines. Justice Minister Adasso Rodriguez Bayala said during a briefing broadcast by state TV. He described homosexuality as bizarre behavior. Officials touted the new law as a recognition of marriage and family values in Burkina Faso. These guys are old-fashioned, aren't they? I mean, you think you got people in Kansas or something, but here you go. You will go before a judge, the justice minister said, addressing offenders. Burkina Faso has been run by the military following a coup in 2022 that the entire world ignored. That the soldiers said was to stabilize the country amid worsening security crisis that provided better governance. Rights groups, however, they have rights groups, not there necessarily. Rights groups, however, accuse the junta, it's a junta, that's a fun word, junta too, of clamping down on human rights with the rampant arrest and military conscription of critics. You see, if you're a critic of the military junta that took over a few years ago, then they arrest you and they force you into the military. Forced conscription, it's a draft of sorts. Since coming to power in September of 2022, after Burkina Faso's second coup that year, they had two coups that year, the junta leader, Traoré, he also positioned himself as a Pan-African leader, which is very popular, with rhetoric of independence from the West. Eventually, they'll have no electricity at all. A message that often resonates with Africa's young population. They're like Democrats here, kind of. So isn't that great? So half the countries, and more than half the countries in Africa, have banned homosexuality. Burkina Faso did it, and a lot of countries, they have the death penalty. And in Iran, of course, they don't have that problem because they had a few, but they hanged them from construction cranes, and everybody cheered. So that worked out, produced the results they were looking for. Yes, sir. That's what we got. All right, now let's get to the president because there are big things going on with Venezuela. I went and did a bunch of research, as you might expect, because that's what I do. It's my job. And the Government Accountability Office, that used to be the Government Accounting Office, they have a story. This is actually from 2023, June 3rd of 2023, from GAO, Government Accountability Office. Venezuela, illicit financial flows and U.S. efforts to disrupt them. And they go into the fast facts and the highlights and what the GAO found. What they found, illicit financial flows related to Venezuela include proceeds from the sale of commodities such as oil and gold, among others, as well as drug trafficking. It's a major, turns out it's 16% of their GDP in Venezuela. Drug trafficking, 16% of the gross domestic product. So that's billions and billions of dollars. And the U.S. government has been watching. This was during the Biden administration, and they didn't do anything about it. They said, hey, that's pretty good. You guys are doing very well. You've got more than $8 billion in drug trafficking, and the drugs really coming to the United States and killing people here. And the Democrats said, not a problem. We're behind you on that because, our friends are the drug dealers and here in the United States and the traffickers and doing most of the drugs. That when we go to, where were we, Nantucket the other day, where they had their cocaine is so pure that they found it in the wastewater. And the wastewater, that's good stuff. Hey, this is really good cocaine we're finding in the wastewater. But the people of Venezuela and the Biden administration, they didn't lift a finger. They didn't say a word. They're fine with that. And I looked up the May 14th, 2025 Centers for the National Center for Health Statistics. U.S. overdose deaths decrease almost 27% in 2024. Hey, that's good news. That's got to be real good, doesn't it? Yeah, and it turns out that we only lost about 80,000 Americans to fatal drug overdoses. 80,000 Americans to fatal drug overdoses in 2024, and that's down 27%, which means you had more than 100,000 fatal drug overdoses the year before. And that's kind of amazing. 2024, that was an election year, so that was during the Biden administration, too. The National Center for Health Statistics, and they put out the numbers. Synthetic opioids, estimated deaths 76,000 in 2023, but in 2024 only 48,000. But then you got to add in other drugs like methamphetamine, 29,456 from methamphetamine, 22,000 from cocaine. These are fatal drug overdoses in 2024. And, natural semi-synthetic, another 8,000 deaths, 8,006 deaths from that. But those numbers are down from the previous year of 2023, because the Biden administration was doing such a great job of all that. So we had, 80,000 deaths from fatal drug overdoses, and President Trump is finally doing something about it. He was talking to the press again yesterday, which he does a lot of, and they can't stand it because they prefer to not have to do anything, not lift a finger. And President Trump yesterday, soundbite number 11. This one goes up to 11. And President Trump was asked, hey, anything going on with this Venezuela drug trafficking stuff?
We just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat, a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time. And we just, these came out of Venezuela and coming out very heavily from Venezuela. A lot of things are coming out of Venezuela.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of things are coming. And the Reuters news agency has that line, U.S. military kills 11 people in strike on alleged drug boat from Venezuela, Trump says. Well, and here's the video. You can count the little heads on the boat just before it blows up. But out of Washington, the dateline, the U.S. military killed 11 people on Tuesday in a strike on a vessel from Venezuela, allegedly carrying illegal narcotics, President Donald Trump said, in the first known operation since his administration's recent deployment of warships to the southern Caribbean. Now, our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was then asked about this, and he was on an airstrip, I believe, en route to Latin America, where he's going to be taking on this and other challenges that we have with our neighbors to the south.
The president's been very clear that he's going to use the full power of America and the full might of the United States to take on and eradicate these drug cartels, no matter where they're operating from and no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity. Those days are over. We are going to wage combat against drug cartels that are flooding American streets and killing Americans.
We're going to wage combat against Latin American drug cartels that are killing Americans by the tens of thousands every year. And it's another one that, our political leadership in the United States just yawns and says, yeah, what's for lunch? Hey, look, the numbers are down. The Democrats love this. 680 murders in Chicago last year. This year, we're only going to have 600 murders. See, everything's getting better. This is the Democrat Party for you. They love death more than we love life. They're worse than Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda hasn't murdered 80,000 Americans, but we're going to have 80,000 Americans die of fatal drug overdoses this year. President Trump, I think, tapped the brakes pretty hard yesterday with this airstrike on a go-fast boat, killing 11 alleged Venezuelans. They looked like Venezuelans from the airplane, from the drone. Isn't that amazing? So this is war, and Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, he was barking tough guy stuff the other day. Yeah, don't mess with us in Venezuela or we'll show you. So here we go. Now the Democrats are pro-drug trafficker, pro-fast boat, pro-smuggling Chinese fentanyl into the United States by way of Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang. Remember that took over those apartment buildings in Colorado? That gang. They're not like normal people, those commies. They're a peculiar bunch. Bloodthirsty bunch. Commies, They're not like normal people. Not at all. Not at all. The commies, they're gathered in communist China right now. And Vlad the Impaler Putin is there in China meeting with Xi Jinping, Ricochet Rabbit. And there's a lot of remarkable stuff going on there, including their strange story about their habits. They have a lot of strange habits, and they collect. I'm not sure how I want to approach this because it's a bit peculiar, but it turns out the communist leaders, Putin and Kim Jong-un is there as well, meeting with Xi Jinping, and they have brought with them their own, how do I put this, their own fecal collection teams. The communist Putin from Russia brought his own, one of the headlines his poop collector, and they bring him in cases, and they don't want to leave their fecal waste there because they know that the communists will gather up the fecal contamination and they will give them to their doctors, and they'll test them to see what kind of medications they're on, learn if they have high blood pressure or if they're on fentanyl or what's going on in their blood system, because that's what communists do, And I was sharing these stories today. They weren't going very far, I think, but these stories today, it's pretty crazy stuff that they have going on. That the communists, here's one now, for example, Kim Jong-un uses special toilet on China trip to hide health clues. That's one of the stories, because they don't want to leave their stuff behind. They know that the commies will gather it up, send it to the laboratory, and try to learn stuff about them. And so he brings his own toilet to collect his own samples so that the Chinese don't get any. And it turns out Putin is doing the same thing. That crazy stuff. They've got a poop suitcase that they travel with.